What's up, Scoop Podcast? I'm your host, Erica Kruppen, and on today's episode, we have a guest. We love guests on the episode. All right, we have Colin Funkhauser. He is the host of Pet Sitter Confessional podcast, which I absolutely love. I found you, Colin, when I was just doing some research online, started binge watching your podcast or listening to your podcast. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
It's my pleasure to be here, Erica. Super excited to talk with you today.
All right. Well, I feel like I know a lot about you and a lot about your wife and about your business. But if you could just give me and the listeners a highlight reel about the podcast and your business and all that good stuff.
Sure. So I was a young boy. No, I'm kidding. No. So Megan is my wife. She and I have actually been pet sitting for coming up on 13 years. We started pet sitting in graduate school to earn some extra money because graduate school doesn't pay a whole lot, and we needed something that was flexible. And honestly, we just never stopped. We got a couple more degrees, went on to do a couple more programs and things like that, and careers. And we're always pet sitting. It was something we always did. And so about 5 years ago, we decided to go full time into dog walking and pet sitting and animal care and all that fun stuff. Shortly thereafter, while we were doing that, I'm an avid podcast listener. I won't tell you how many exactly I'm subscribed to because I'm a bit embarrassed. But I came to Megan and I said, "Hey, why don't we do something together that's a little creative, a little bit outside of our comfort zone, and do this thing of podcasting?" And I came to her with a list of our first 13 episodes, and she went, "Let's do this. We're doing this episode." and we haven't stopped. And so we're coming up on close to 600 episodes now. We talk about the life of a pet sitter and interview people from all over the world and doing that. And it's been a lot of fun.
Okay. And I love that you and your wife are like a dynamic duo. So you're in business together, correct?
Yep. We run and operate the business together. We do separate things in the business. So I do mostly the infield, the training, that kind of thing. Megan does all the back end, all the social media, all of the scheduling and route planning part.
And I was actually talking about this on a truck talk when I was driving into work because I've added a second podcast, like second episode on Wednesdays, just as like a little bonus episode, just kind of like stuff off the top of my head. Like, this is what Erica's thoughts are. And I was talking about like partnership and leadership and dividing and conquering. And I love that you two are in business together. You have opposite skill sets, so you're able to complement each other. And I have found from seeing other people that do this, when they do it well, they're able to be super, super successful.
Yeah, it is an immense blessing to us. It really, really is. And you said it's kind of this divide and conquer of, as a solo business owner, you have to basically go, well, I kind of have to do all of this stuff. And maybe I need to farm out some of these responsibilities, find that CPA, find that tax accountant, maybe hire that person. But it does ultimately rest on your shoulders. And having a partner, having a spouse, being able to come in together and go, okay, I'm really bad at XYZ and honest ABCDEF. Could you,
Yeah.
and she thrives on a lot of those very fine details, on a lot of the intricacies and all the route plannings. I just start seeing, I know my vision goes dark and I'm like, I don't even know what's going on on here. I need to go get out and walk a dog. And it does take a lot of work though. Like, we do have to be able to put on your business hat and then take it off when it's appropriate. And that is really hard. Like, it's been a long day. You've been stressed out. You're sitting down to dinner and all you want to talk about is let's talk about business. And it's like, no, let's talk about family or something else other, right now.
Yeah, I'm business all the time too, so I hear you on that. So going back, you said you went full time, you said 5 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah. About 5 years ago now.
Okay. Now, let's kind of what attracted you to the pet sitting industry?
Yeah, that's actually a really, man, a lot attracted to us. Originally, we got in to do pet sitting because it was flexible around our schedule, right? As graduate students, we needed something that we weren't pinned down as a 9 to 5 thing, that we could flex around when we needed to be in the lab or writing or in the field doing our field research, and that we could kind of flex around that. And that was really beneficial to us. And I think ever since then, the flexibility of the work has been something that's kept us interested. Secondarily, for me personally, I really like the all of the small things that we get to do in helping people. And our mission in our business is to help pet parents through every stage of life with their pet, right? To help them live their best life through every stage of life with their pet. And when we got connected with that and realized, we kind of had this awakening of like, no, what are we actually doing? Like, is it really just, you know, scooping the poop, or is it really just, emptying out the litter box for the cat or whatever? No, if it's like, if I wasn't here doing this person wouldn't be able to go see their grandma before she passed away. So they wouldn't be able to go work, right? They wouldn't be able to do this stuff guilt free and stress free. So that's something that we really work on reminding ourselves of constantly of all the stuff that you have to deal with and that we deal with on a daily basis, right? Going, no, there is a big purpose behind this that does keep us going.
Now, did you have that purpose when you went full time or when you got started? How'd you find that?
Right. So I was actually working for our Department of Conservation as a watershed and streams biologist, going out and helping landowners with erosion problems and building bridges and things like that. And when we went into business, it was right before COVID hit, so that was a great time, right? Everyone it was fantastic. There's to the moon, whatever. But we it did take time for us to develop that as a business of going. Originally, again, we were just going in, going, this is something we know. I don't know what it really, I couldn't have articulated exactly why we were doing this. It was just, this brings me purpose and meaning. I find fulfillment in getting to do this. And I think all along there was a very personal aspect to this. Of there's a person, somebody when they call, like, no dog has ever paid me at the end of a walk, right? No cat has tried to tip me after I scoop their litter box. It's always a person at the other end of the line that's has concerns, has biases, has past issues that have come up, and they're looking for help. And it really was the helping people aspect that we got connected to when we sat down to really start and figuring out, okay, I've got to talk about my business. And that's where that arose from, Erica, is we're going, okay, I know what we love. I know we do it really well, but I have to tell people about it. How do I go about doing that? And that's where a lot of our language started to come from when we needed to tell other people about what we do, so that we could grow our business.
And I think that's really important too, because this is actually something that I guess I'm struggling with a little bit. And I was talking with, I don't know if you've heard of Jeff Joyner, but he is an author. He's also a very gifted communicator with public speaking. And he was talking about this last week, which the episode is going to drop in a couple weeks. You're not selling scooping poop. You're not selling mowing somebody's lawns, walking somebody's dog. Like, what are you actually selling? And I love to hear that you figured that out and you've been able to put language behind it, so then you can communicate that to your customer and you have the purpose behind it. That's huge.
And it's a continual refinement process, right? Like I was, what was it, 3 years ago? I was giving a presentation to a local business community. I was talking about what we do and all of the little intricate aspects of it because people just don't think of those things in the general public. And after I finished, I said, "Okay, does you have any questions?" And a marketer was in the back row, and he raised his hand and he said, "Okay, but why would I choose you?" And I at first,
Why would I choose you?
yeah,
Whoa.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And and in my head, I'm going, well, I mean, I just told you about the professionalism and the training and the pet first aid and CPR and the license and the bonding and the insurance, and I just told you about our like I had only told him about the what and not the why. I'd only told him about all the little details in the jargon, and he's sitting here going, yeah, what does that get me? And I think that those two questions, why would I choose you and what does that get me, have been something that we've really tried to work on over the last 3-5 years, really. But going, okay, I'm going to say I'm pet first aid and CPR certified. Great. What does that get my client? Because they don't know. They're not thinking about that. Right. Okay. Oh, cool. I have insurance. Well, that's not really that impressive. What does that get the person? What kind of feelings should they have in response to that? and how we help them.
Whew, I just got goosebumps. That's deep. That's a lot for me to chew on and for the listeners to chew on. Okay. So you guys you're figuring all of that out. You're trying to figure out the who and the why, which you're doing. Now, you have your business and you said that you were in graduate school. Are you using any of your graduate education with your business? Like how does that work?
Right. So no, I mean, I would say no, but other people might say yes. So Megan has a master's degree in environmental toxicology. I have a degree in natural resource management, and then went on for more education in quantitative biology. And so, what we really bring to our business is, I do feel like we are really good at asking questions and digging into our data, right? So when we want to know how is our business doing, what's the market like, we're able to lean on our analytical skills. Sure, it's not in business or marketing or things like that, but I can analyze data because numbers are numbers, and we can start looking at that a little bit more when we look at, okay, what does it mean for me to do market research in our business? Well, where can I go get information? We were actually just doing a deep dive into kind of trying to figure out a market fit for a potential new service. And so we just went to the Google ad console where you can buy ads against keywords.
Mhm.
It's a great place to go to if you're trying to look at volume of interest in your area, because then I was able to go, oh, actually, nobody's searching this term. Nobody's, oh, okay, right. Erica, you just made that face there. It's like, okay, so what does that mean for me? That's a lot of heavy lifting, right? So I need to go do something else. But it's that kind of not being afraid of the data that I feel like we get to benefit from quite a bit.
Well, that's cool that you know how to do market research. I'm glad that you share that because some people, like for us, for poop scooping, the searches were really, really low for a long time because the service was really unheard of. It was our job to create awareness.
Yeah. You said that it's our job. Like many times I feel like, okay, who is going to tell people about this? And then you do have to go, okay, do I take the search volume or do I take this other data and just say, okay, nothing exists here? Or do I go, I need to try this. How would I get in touch with people who might not even know that this is a thing and make that market? And I do feel like many of us are in that position where we live. We're making the market for our services and our business. And that's a lot, again, that's a lot of heavy lifting. That's a lot of work. But we don't need to be afraid of that, right? Because there's a lot of potential on the other side.
Yeah. Now, how would you say that the pet sitting industry has changed like pre-COVID versus post-COVID?
Yeah, I mean, there's what hasn't changed about it, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that happens in from COVID is there was an immense boom of people entering into the industry. I mean, a lot of people came into the industry, and from a perspective of long-term growth and health of the industry, great. We always need new businesses coming in, and we always need people growing and expanding this. It has also meant that customers are really changing their purchasing and their buying behaviors. I think that COVID was a demarcation in a lot of things. It increased the amount of technology that's acceptable to a potential client. The number of businesses that we saw jump on the bandwagon or whatever for software for the very first time through COVID was immense because people wanted to do everything remotely. They didn't want to leave cash out. They were worried about how to do these things. It also just made booking and everything so much easier. So technological acceptance has really increased through that, which has been a benefit to businesses. But then there's also been just the oh, sorry, Erica.
Oh, go ahead. Go
I,
for it.
I was going to say the humanization of pets has gone through the roof. We've always known that people love their pets. It's what the old stat that we used to talk about was 70% of pet owners would delay medical intervention in their life if it meant they could provide medical intervention in the life of their pet, right? And but now we're going, the personalization, the customization, the on demand, the intimate kind of connections that people are looking for. And I say people, I mean pet owners. They're looking to have and do things for their pets way more above and beyond what they were even thinking about doing 5 years ago. So there's been that increase of just, no, my pet is such an integral part of my family. I'm willing to spend a $5 upgrade if you'll do, a quick little mini photo shoot in the visit, or if you'll upgrade me to a little pup cup so that they can get that experience while I'm away.
Oh, that's so good, and I'm a dog mom through and through, and, I've spent thousands on my dog because she's had surgeries, she had, an ACL repair, she has allergies, I buy her food is so expensive, and anytime there's any issue, I'm like, "Alright, let's go to the vet." I I rarely go to the doctor, like, I avoid it like the plague, and I have insurance, but I'm like, "Meh, it's really not that big of a deal, I don't need to go." But her, she's got a little sneeze, I'm like, "Book it, let's go."
Yeah. Yeah, and it's that aspect of going, I don't want they do so much for me emotionally. They do so much for me in all aspects. It's the least that I can do to provide XYZ service, or it's the least I can do to have XYZ customization. I think my current favorite example of this, and they're really knocking this out of the park, is the food brand Farmer's Dog.
Oh, yeah,
It's a
we get
it's
ads like that all the time.
Yeah, it's a wet food, raw food that's made, that's shipped to you. But the
Mhm.
one thing that they did that I'm like, "Oh, this was genius." They put the dog's name on the packet. So it says Baxter's food. Ah, it's nobody else's food. It's not that you can't buy Baxter's food at the pet store, can you? Nope.
Nope.
You get it shipped to you and it says Baxter's food. And clients immediately go, "Yes, I want to give Baxter his stuff and make Baxter's experience the best." And so finding ways to do that in our business is something that we didn't have to do 5 years ago. But now we're needing to do that because people are looking for that kind of experience for their dogs and cats.
Yes, yes. Okay, so this is a nice little transition because I wanted to talk to you about your business, but my audience, for the most part, it's a lot of pooper scoopers. But I wanted to get into like transitioning. You started a podcast, right? And that's a whole nother business in itself that takes time away from the actual business. So, with the farmer's dog, by any chance, have you reached out to them to see if they'd be a sponsor on your podcast?
Yeah, we have actually had conversations with them. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're amazing people. They're wonderful to work with. Yeah.
Okay, because that's huge. And for the listeners, there's a lot of time and there's a lot of energy that goes into the podcasting. You might think like, oh, you just talk a little bit and then you upload it. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of time. There's a lot of like brain power that goes into it with the planning. When you said that you had the first, was it 13 episodes?
Yeah, yeah.
Sir, I am so impressed. I had a concept. I was like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm gonna talk about today. We'll figure it out." And it's been like that literally for the past 112 episodes. Like,
Wow.
we'll just figure it out the week before.
Right. Well, you're right. But you have a lot to pull from too. And I think, your podcast that you do, there are a lot of experiential things. There are a lot of, this is what I'm thinking about, because you're problem solving, you're reading things, you're watching things, and then the topics kind of flow naturally from what you're personally experiencing.
Yeah. I like to do the interviews just because you know how when you're doing a solo episode, it's just as much knowledge as you know, but then when you bring other people on, they get to bring their knowledge, they get to bring their experience. And then I realize that I love those episodes more than just the solo ones, just because I personally like COVID made me very antisocial, which you wouldn't believe it, but it truly did. And I kind of like drew away from people,
Mm.
and so I told myself this year, I want to do more interviews. I want to do in person interviews. So that's the reason why the podcast studio looks like this now. So I could bring people in because I'm so sick of being alone all the time.
Well, it is a great place to go for community. And I think first and foremost, if people are interested in doing a podcast or getting started in that, you have to think of it as an ongoing conversation with one person. I think that's what's really helped Megan and I through some of the tough periods of what is this even important? What am I even doing? Right? Like going, no, like I'm having a conversation with one person. One person needs to hear what I'm talking about right now. And it does take a lot of work. It is really not just sitting down and shooting the breeze and then leaving, right? Especially if you're doing a solo informational episode. So you have to understand who you're talking to, right? To whom is going to receive this information. And one thing that I think is really underutilized right now are local podcasts, or podcasts that only your clients get access to, right? Or having that kind of community there. Like we always talk about email newsletters and social media and stuff, but wouldn't it be great if your clients could literally hear your voice, or you could be the go-to person for information about pets or whatever that is in your community? Like it is a great way to also elevate yourself in that aspect.
Yeah, so, I'm so excited you're talking about this. I wanna tell you before I start asking you some other questions, this has been on my mind, and the woman that I brought in, Rachel, where we did an in-person interview, her and I are meeting on Monday because I've been wanting to do a local podcast. Like, I've been wanting to bring, like, small business owners together, and then selfishly, it's because I want to start interacting with the community, and this is something I've learned going out to Chamber of Commerce meetings. A lot of them are later. A lot of these network events, they're at night. A lot of drinking's happening. A lot of bad food is being eaten, and I'm gluten free and dairy free. I quit drinking alcohol. It'll be 2 years this coming up March. And
It's awesome.
so thank you. Thank you. It was a decision that I needed to make I'll go to a bar and like eat if need be, like earlier in the day, but I just don't feel comfortable going into a bar after 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. I don't think it's the right place for me to be. Because I know at 11 o'clock when I'm hungry, I make poor decisions when I'm eating. I don't know what's going to happen when there's booze flowing around and everybody's having a good time and maybe I have a moment of weakness. So I was thinking, well, I do the podcasting thing and I want to get around other like minded people, business owners, influential people in the community. I want to learn. This is the way that I can do it without jeopardizing or compromising my new like boundaries, my new guidelines that I put in place so I could be a better person.
Well, and if it's going to be more accessible to you, it's going to be more accessible to other people. There are so many days whenever we're going, oh, we've got the business blitz tonight at 7:30. I literally, it's the last thing I want to do. It's the
Right.
last thing I want to do is go and sit and talk to people. You said eat bad food, and I just had to laugh because they're never catered well. Like it's always like it's never good. And then it just makes it way more accessible. It's like, you know what? What if I could get some information about a local business when I'm ready for it? And that's the great thing about podcasts is that it really is an on-demand informational source and on-demand community that brings people into where you are. So yes, it does take planning. You do have to have a schedule and be consistent. That's literally the number one way to grow your podcast is to be consistent, and it's hard. So pick a pace that's best for you. Is it once a week? Is it once every 2 weeks? If it's a monthly podcast, I don't know, whatever your schedule fits in, find that time and then start talking about the things that you're interested in. Bring people in for those interviews and don't be worried about those. Prepare people ahead of time if you can, or get them information or things like that. But you can start with that little network and just grow it. And then that way, people want that connection and they are always looking for new ways to have it.
Yep. Yep. So how did you guys get started? So you had your 13 episodes. Did you guys just start recording right away? Did you batch them out? Was it once a week? Tell me what that first, let's say 3 months looked like.
Right. The 3 months. So the first thing we did, and I would recommend anybody, not just because we did it, right? Because you have to always take a grain of salt, but I would say to record a bunch of episodes that you're never going to release. Because you got to find your groove for the podcast. If you're, especially if you're nervous, right? Like there is an aspect of going, okay, it'll never be perfect. So you do have to release it at some point. But Megan and I really had to figure out and going, how do we do this? We've never done something like this before. So what's the tone like? How do we have this natural conversation, but also having an outline and bullet points and sometimes things? And so it took us a little bit to figure that out. But then what we did is we had our episodes and we would just talk about it throughout the week. When we started, we were just doing one episode a week. And We would record on Sunday nights. So that meant that, basically Monday through Friday, we were talking and just kind of editing a little bit, working together on this. We had a shared Google Doc that we could all both add our points to and information to, so that by the time that we would sit down to our episode, we'd actually had the conversation already a couple times because it kept coming back up. Once we started introducing the interviews, that became a little bit more complicated. And because we weren't scheduling these on our time, it was now, I have to take into account somebody else's. So so that made it a bit difficult, but it was just setting aside that time. And as we worked through our list, we were constantly in that same Google Doc throwing in new ideas, throwing in new every time we would be talking about something, listening to something, reading something, it was throwing it in there. So that way, on that Monday, we could kind of look at what we were wanting to talk about, pick something that spoke to us, and then just start writing a little bit about it. But we were constantly, and still do, gather ideas throughout the entire week to kind of build that up. I did have to learn how to edit, which was really bad at, right? So we still don't have an editor. We don't pay somebody to do that. We do all of our own editing and everything, and that does take a little bit of time. It does take, but I think one of the best things you can do is try and do a more front end work instead of the back end work of editing. So kind of the more you front load that, it really helps in the editing process. And it was just kind of learning those tools and really finding that groove. And that's for those first 3 months.
Yeah, like you said, just figuring out like what your tone is, how you communicate well. Your first interview, did you actually release your first recording, or did you sandbag that one and not put it out?
Oh, for our very first interview.
Because the no, just the first recording. Because I know mine. Figuring out how to talk to, like, I was solo, right? So I had to figure out how to, like, talk to myself, but also talk to somebody else. Like, right now, I'm looking at you and I'm talking to you, but if I was actually looking at you on screen, I'm looking over here. So I need to make sure that I'm hovering over my mic, I'm not whacking it with my hand, and I'm making eye contact with the camera hole, which is connecting with you and the audience watching
Yeah.
the video.
So we our Megan's and my very first time we sat down, that has been deleted, and that doesn't exist anymore. That was we
Oh,
did
you
we did
kept
we
it.
did nothing. That is gone, long gone, will never be found, right? Nobody will ever resurface that thing.
That's
Like I said, we recorded, I think, about 4 or 5 times before we kind of got what we were looking for. And we had a very strict purpose for the what we were trying to do. And it's still out there. So if you want to go and listen to our very, very, very first episode, it's an intro episode. And it
gotta
doesn't sound very it doesn't sound very natural, and it's stilted a little bit. And we're kind of like, well, hey, anyway, and so that confidence came later. By the time we got to the interview, they had actually reached out to us and they had said, "Hey, we saw you posting in some Facebook groups," because that was how Megan wanted to grow the podcast. Was, hey, every time we talk about a topic, let's and somebody has a question about it, we can it in groups that allow it, and a lot of them don't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Respond with your episode to that question, and then actually answer their question. It is kind of annoying if somebody's like, "Oh, I covered this on episode 113," and then that's all they say. So we would give like oh, here was our perspective on this and XYZ, gave a little bit of that value, and then say, but you can hear more of that on the podcast if that doesn't answer your direct question. We had the person reach out to us and say, hey, saw your podcast. We'd love to be interviewed. And it was like, okay, yeah, I guess I don't know what to do with an interview. That wasn't on we weren't going to do interviews. It was just going to be Megan and I sharing. Yeah, our original plan was just to do Megan and I talking about our stories, our perspectives. We got the one interview, and it was from I'm always going to forget their names. Oh no, Beth and he's going to kill me. But they're traveling pet sitters. They just travel the globe. They don't have a home. They just go from house sit to house sit, taking care of people's pets across the globe. And I remember doing that interview and getting off and going out and talking to Megan and going, we need to do more of these
Yep.
because our perspective on the industry is so small. Like, we only know what we know, just like you were talking about, Erica. Because like, I can only talk about my experiences so much. I can't do it all. And we really, Alex and Beth, okay, there we go. They came to me. But being able to say, like, hey, here's this thing over here, and we find it fascinating. And here's this thing over here, and it's fascinating. And just being open to that, because things will change as you go throughout the process.
Yeah, when I first started mine, I was nervous, just trying to figure it out. And I was like trying to have mine very scripted. So, like, I knew exactly what I was going to be saying. And I tried to do all this planning because I would watch stuff online where they're like, you have to plan ahead so much, you have to do all the heavy lifting. That's not how my brain works. That's not how my recording goes. I have to have a topic, I have to have my bullet points to kind of keep me in track. If I need to ad read, if there's a hook, I need to write that out verbatim so I can deliver it, but I just go. And for a while there, I was a little nervous and I was like, nobody's going to want to listen to these because they're long winded. But what I realized is the right people enjoy that content. They like to hear my perspective. And the interviews where I felt very like insecure, and maybe I got a little too vulnerable and I was like, "Oh no, I shouldn't I need to delete that." Those are the ones that do so well and I get so much feedback on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is about being personal, and I think that really, again, coming back to that community, that connection that people are looking for, and you can't that can't be contrived, that can't be faked.
Nope.
People can sense through that, right? And so, right, if you need just some general bullet points and you can go, that's great, right? If you need it a little bit more scripted out with specific things, try that at first, but don't be afraid to kind of mix it up a little bit. And it's kind of like, I don't know, like when you're practicing for a play and you've got your lines in front of you, that first time, like, and you can have them memorized, you're just holding the script in your hands. You're not even looking at it. The moment the director takes that book away from you, it's like, I don't know anything. No, what's go ah. But it's just a comfortable that's why when you speak about or you talk about things that you're comfortable with, you're familiar with, you can talk a lot more than I think a lot of people give themselves credit for.
Yeah, and it allows you to stay in your own lane because I was getting a lot of pressure to talk about certain things. I'm like, I don't really know about this stuff. And so I'm like doing some research and I'm like looking online and I like pulled some facts and stats and then I'm trying to like recite this and that causes editing to be incredibly difficult. I'm like, I'm not doing it. If
Yeah.
I don't know it without having to reference like word by word, I can't talk about it. And if so, I'm going to show that I have a piece of paper in my hand and be like, "Hey guys, I got to read this off the paper." Just so that like transparency is there and just to let other people know that like I don't have it all figured out. I don't know what I'm doing over here. I'm just recording this podcast video on like an iPhone. It's nothing super high tech.
Yeah.
Like we're getting the job done over here. Um
Yeah.
and I've really enjoyed seeing listening to, like, the progress of your podcast, and that's crazy that you weren't even thinking about doing interviews because that's how I connected with you guys, and then you
Mhm.
had me be, I think I've been twice? Have I been on your
Twice.
podcast
Yeah,
twice?
you've been on the podcast twice, yeah.
I remember I was so scared because I don't even think I had my own podcast at the time. I was, like, so nervous. I had, like, very little, subscribers on YouTube. Nobody was watching my channel, but it was like the Lord was just telling me to keep going, keep doing this. Eventually, it's going to pay off. And now, like the industry is starting to boom, and all these new people are coming in, and they're finding these 800 plus videos. And I'm like, well, I'm sure happy that I did all those because it would be a mess trying to do them now.
But it is, yeah, and it's we that part of being adaptable to whatever comes up, I think that is crucial. And you may think you've got a perspective and a lane and where you're going to head, but really be open to just changing it. And something that Megan and I have not done, that I know you already talking about, the video aspect. We don't do video. That's mostly because a lot of the times that when we're recording, we're in our little tiny office in our home at 9:30 at night with a little desk lamp on so we don't have light going down the hallway that wakes up our kids, right? Right? So it's like I'm not putting the effort for a studio because uh I can't do that, right? Like it is about finding where you're comfortable and being okay with that and knowing that, like you said, the right people are going to find it, and just to trust that process. And we've since we started doing interviews, there have been some where I've gone, I don't know about that one. And you weren't one of those, Erica. So don't worry. It was not any of yours. But I've done interviews where I've been like, I don't know. I guess like, okay. And those are the ones that just get a huge response from our listeners who are like, that was the best one ever. And that was such a cool story. And I'm going, okay, because it's a reminder that it doesn't have to be at all. It doesn't need to be impactful to me every time. Right.
Exactly. And, like,
Yeah.
knowing your audience. Now, okay, so you're doing your podcast, you're bringing on the guests, and you said that you marketed your podcast a little bit in the groups. You're saying that a lot of them don't allow you to do that anymore. How are you marketing the podcast now?
Right. Yeah. So that was something that was very beneficial. Then when we were doing that, and we weren't spamming people, right? Like we were trying to be respectful of it and only post relevant things to the groups as we could. And we still do that every now and then. We don't post now. What we do instead of direct episodes, we will post like informational memes or inspirational quotes and things like that that we can pull from the episodes that are just like one little step removed from it, where it's like, no, all of the value is contained in this post. We're going to share that. And what we actually get from those are a lot of other pet sitters who then reshare that, or they'll find our post and they'll share it into the group. So we're not having to, which is really beneficial. So that's, social media is still huge in how we operate and how we run. Tagging people, following people is what we do. If you were doing a local podcast, it'd be way easier because there's only so many businesses that you can pull in, and it brings that circle really, really tight, which is great for getting connected to all of the right people. Some things that we also do, we have personally been sponsors at conferences. We've gone and had booths set up at conferences and done recordings on the conference show, ground, and doing live, things like that for people. Sorry.
I wanna
Um,
start doing that stuff, and my hands are sweating right now thinking about it, but that I wanna do one this year, and I'm so nervous.
what I recommend for that is find one other person that you know who's going to be there and
Okay.
invite them to do your first one. Because then as other people, somebody sitting down at your booth to talk, they're like, oh, that's what this is. And they can get engaged and they can talk. And then it's a little bit easier for you because you kind of have your network there. And then the other way that we promote our podcast is through our email newsletter. So that's actually, we have more subscribers on our email newsletter than listeners, which is fantastic, right? We want to be trying to grow that and giving people value in that way. And so we send out a weekly email newsletter. And the reason we do this is because during COVID, we went from doing one episode a day to doing, or sorry, one episode a week to doing 5 episodes a week because we were home, our business wasn't doing too much, and people wanted to talk. And so we were doing like, here's the update from Australia, and here's the update from Dublin, and here's the update from New York, and here's the update from California. And every day was kind of a new what's going on in the industry. We were doing so much content, and we would have tax accountants on, and we had other professional industries on there to talk about how to manage this. There was so much that we were pumping out that we realized that people were missing a lot of things. And so now what our email newsletter is, it's a weekly catch up, and they get a link to the Monday episode, a week to the Wednesday episode, and then we do a flashback Friday because we send our newsletters out on Fridays, and it's an old episode that we're promoting that's kind of relevant to stuff that's going on. And then we also do an intro email kind of writing thing. So it's a way to resurface old content and keep people engaged.
That's a really good idea. I got 2 questions about that. The first one is, how are you building your email list for the newsletter?
Right. So it's a pop up. So currently we used to have a lead magnet for on our website where they could get I even forget even what it was. Now all it is, it's like a, hey, do you want to be kept up to date with all the latest industry trends and information from the podcast? Sign up here. And we get phenomenal responses from that alone. We don't even have to give stuff away. They love that.
So you have a website for the podcast?
Yes, we do. Petsitterconfessional.com.
I need to get one. I don't have one for my podcast.
Yeah, so that's been a great way to market the podcast. The other way, so we also collect emails from, we started a Facebook group called Sitter Confessionals.
Mhm.
And anytime somebody wants to join, we say, hey, we send out a weekly email newsletter. Would you like to sign up for that? Give us your email. And so we get people who come into our group, they give us their email, they go on our email newsletter list. And we've been able to grow it that way too.
Ooh, so you're developing like this whole ecosystem, which is smart, because I have not been that smart. I don't have any of that. People are like, "Do you have a course? Do you have this?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just over here talking on the internet, trying to grow grow my business. I don't know what I'm doing."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
well, I'm happy that I'm starting to get more guests and I'm reaching out. So, as for your guests, because you said you've had tax accountants, now how are you finding the people that you want on your podcast to ask them and bring them on?
A lot of research.
Okay.
We do spend a lot of time thinking about who we'd like to talk to. So this does mean that, and we have a standing invitation, right? There's a if you go to like our website /contact us, or it's called be our guest. You can go learn about how to become a guest on the show, and we do screen those. Not everybody's a good fit. A lot of people are pitching their latest whatever, so they don't come on the show. But we do a lot of social media investigation on businesses and companies, people who we think are just really killing it, knocking it out of the park. For people outside the industry, we'll try and get recommendations from other people. I've read books that people have written to see if they're going to be a good fit for us, things like that. So that part does take time, to just know, like, who is this person. And then when we do reach out to them, we write a personalized script asking them specifically, hey, this is what we do, this is why I want you on. And I feel like that's really important to say, I want you, Erica, to talk about growing your poop scooping business, developing community, and how you're, connecting clients and charging the right rates. Like, it gives that person immediately three things that they go, oh, I can talk about that. That is, oh, I can do that. Because we're reaching out to other business owners, a lot of people who don't do speaking professionally. So they may think, oh, I can't talk about that. I can't do anything. Who am I? So there's a lot of imposter syndrome. We then also include a link to our website. Again, why the website's so important, so they can go look at our entire history and catalog and go, oh, okay, these people aren't just a fly by night, whatever company. And then we start, coordinating from there.
Yeah, I hate when I get pitched where you can tell it's just generic and it's like, you don't know anything about my business. You haven't done any research. That's immediately trash.
Yeah, yeah. We get the ones that are like, um, oh, like, would you like to have so and so to talk about their book? Pet parents rave about this and blah blah blah. And I go, okay, our audience is 100% pet sitting business owners.
Yeah.
You don't know any, like you said, you're just splatting this out there. It's like, okay, never mind.
Now, for me, I kinda got bored of just talking about business. At a certain point, I'm like, "Ugh, I can't talk about the same thing over and over and over again." So I've kind of, expanded a little bit where I talk about business, I bring on other business owners, but I also am incorporating my faith into part of the podcast, just the journey. Like, I'm not talking about it every episode. And for a minute there, I was a little scared because I was like, oh, goodness, maybe this will deter some people from listening. But the Lord kept speaking to me, and Mr. Producer was like, keep talking about it, Erica. And I've gotten really good feedback about that. Also, like the personal, like mental health, because with business, there's so much going on, and like our mental health is incredibly important. And I have found that those episodes do quite well because a lot of people were struggling coming out of COVID. Do you talk about any of that like extra stuff, or do you stick strictly to business?
Yeah, originally we were going to try and just do the business stuff and be like, here are the three ways to market your business today. First, what you need to do is develop. It's like, oh my gosh, like that's what everybody says they want, and it still drives a lot of traffic to our podcast. So again, here's another pitch to have the website, because then you can have SEO on the website that's driving people through searches to your website for information. And so, some of the biggest things that we get hit for is like, mental health, compassion fatigue, pet sitting insurance, that kind of stuff, where people are searching these terms and our website is being surfaced for them to then click in and find what they're looking for. So Megan and I did for a while try and go, no, we need to just stay like, we're just going to talk about, here's our little box. But then as a business owner, like just frustrations would come out or anxieties were like, ah. And so at some point we couldn't not talk about it. And that's where we started to really get into our personal groove and feel really comfortable of going, hey, I can get on the mic and I can tell you that we just had a client die and we just had our business revenues down and this is going on and we're kind of frustrated, like I probably don't get as animated as I do privately when we're on the podcast because gotta keep that real.
Yeah.
But at least coming on and going, hey, this is what we're struggling with. This is hard. I don't know what to do. And here's what we're thinking. Hey, let us know your thoughts. Those are so wonderful and such. I've really appreciated, and we've been very thankful for the feedback that we've gotten from those. Because you're right, Erica. We're going, I don't know how people are going to receive this. Are people looking to this to be perfect, to get all the answers? Like, what? Why are people here? And time and time and time again, we get comments from people who go, I don't feel alone anymore.
Yes, that allows you to go deeper and connect with your audience. And that's huge because they're in it with you, especially those people that are with you when you first got started. Like they get to be with you through the journey, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. We had, was it last year? We had a listener send us a video on Instagram that she had put together. She'd started listening on episode 1 and taking notes in a composition notebook. And it was just every day she would video her writing her notes about the episode. And she got all the way through the episode and she had like 4 composition notebooks filled with stuff. And I mean, you talk about like, oh, okay, like, wow, okay, I'm so thankful that that was beneficial to you. And when you're thinking about doing a podcast, that really weird word that gets thrown around of authenticity, right? People,
Yeah.
oh, be authentic. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, what is it? Just means connection about what you and to not be afraid to get vulnerable, to have some tough conversations, to have some controversial takes, because people are looking for that. They not that they're looking to get stirred up and like raise the pitchforks or whatever, but they want to know, where do you stand on things. And if you have a podcast where you're bringing on people from the Chamber of Commerce, or you're having, it's very easy to fall into the stilted, like, I'm a business owner and you're a business owner and we're going to talk business. And it's like, no, they have a personality. They have likes, they have dislikes. What kind of ice cream do they want to eat? Like, can we start there? Like, can we talk about that? Like,
Well, what kind of ice cream do you like?
oh man, okay. It's probably going to be too on the nose. I love just a great vanilla bean, just like a classic. No, no, nothing else. Just plain Philly, especially if it's a homemade vanilla bean ice cream. I'm
Oh,
all
yeah.
about that.
And it has to
Yeah.
be done right because the flavor it's so simple that it has to be right with a vanilla bean.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a good coffee espresso. If the bean is gross, right, the espresso is going to taste terrible. And so a lot of people roast their coffees to within an inch of its life to just hide the flavor, and they're like, it'll just taste burnt and it'll be fine. But if you get a lighter roast, those are actually harder to do and actually really exposed because somebody has that talent in that, just like with a vanilla ice cream. And it's like, no, we're distilling this all the way down to its essence, right, to the most simplistic nature. And then is it still good? Is it still worth it? Or do I have to dress it up with all sorts of things to make people think it's valuable?
It I'm gonna hit my husband next time with that next time he pours all that creamer into his coffee, 'cause I tell him and anybody that'll listen, I'm like, "He's a fake coffee drinker. He just a lot of creamer, a little splash of coffee." I drink my black straight up ice cubes, but opposites attract, right?
It,
That's just how it goes.
yeah.
That's so fun. Alright, now I'm hungry. Okay, so, I've learned a couple things here. 1, I gotta get a website, so that's good to know. Did you guys build your own, or did you have somebody else do it?
So we're a bootstrapping kind of people. I don't like paying people for something unless it's absolutely necessary. Things like electricians, plumbers, things what involve the livability of my house, right? That's where I get really like, okay, whatever. You just take however much money you need to make this fixed.
So with taking all this on and not outsourcing it within the podcast, I know it's kind of divided between the two of you. How would you say that this has impacted your business, your actual pet sitting business?
Right. Well, it's a couple ways. One, just knowledge and exposure to the industry has really helped us go, oh, okay, I can see trends a lot easier. I can bring in a lot of outside influence that I maybe would not have known of otherwise. If we had just stayed insular in our business and just never looked up, right, which is so easy to do because we're really busy, we would be lacking in a lot of areas. I still think we'd be providing a high quality service, but it really takes our service in our pet sitting business and makes it a lot better to just know people who are doing awesome things. And I love being connected to people who's like, you're killing it. I want you to succeed with every fiber of my being, and I can learn so much from you. And so primarily that's the number one reason or number one benefit to us as a business is we're just constantly learning. Secondly, it does mean that our time is much more constrained. We just talked about how preparing and recording, and if you're editing the podcast, that eats up not just like what did I figure it out? I think I figured out for every hour long interview that I do, there's like 4 hours of work that goes into it. There's the prep, there's the actual lead up to it, there's the actual interview, then there's the editing and uploading, and all that in is 4 hours for every 1 hour of content.
That's
And
no, I don't track my time, but I have a Monday, I finally now built out monday.com. So now I have like a sequence of all the steps that actually go into the podcast from start to finish. I'm like, "Oh, there really are a lot of steps with this."
love it. Yeah. But it is about that. It means that we've had to be a lot more intentional with our time. And we have had to kind of more time block. I know Monday nights I'm editing the Wednesday episode. And we've been able to get to a point where we're kind of like 2 or 3 weeks ahead with episodes. So I've got a little bit of breathing room. Mondays, not so much. We record those and release them pretty much the next day. Um, but we go, here's my time blocks that I'm giving myself time for this. And it's also helped me understand the importance of, again, that whole, perfection is the enemy of done, right? Done is better than perfect. And going, I could spend 15 hours. I could spend all day editing this podcast and every little tiny thing and making it sound. But at the end of the day, I, I need to get this to where it's okay, where I'm comfortable with it. Nobody's swearing on the podcast. There aren't there's not 3 minutes of silence. And then I can get it out there because that also makes it more of an authentic experience for people who are listening to it, which is what they want in the first place. So it's fighting that urge and trying to, you know, make it to something within an inch of its life. So it's been a lot of scheduling, basically, Erica.
I Yeah, no, I hear you. I like sometimes I think about it and I think about like the whole social media, and I know you're not doing video, and that really does add a whole nother element to the social media content. When people ask me about business and about like where they think my pooper scooper business would be if I hadn't done social media. Because there are people that started after me that found my content online and they started watching it. Then they put their nose down, they hit the ground, and they grew these massive businesses that are doing like way more in revenue than me. And I did catch myself like comparing myself to them. And I'm like, oh, Eric, if you wouldn't have done the social media, where could your business be? And so I had to like fight, those feelings and kind of go back and forth and just understand that like my business is at a good size. It's serving the purpose that it needs to serve. And I'm still able to create the content that I'm creating without necessarily having all the wheels fall off. But I had to start outsourcing some of the stuff that I was like falling on because I was supposed to release an episode on Mondays, and there would be times where I wouldn't release one until Wednesday because I got behind. So I was like, okay, I need to get some sponsors. So I'm able to now hire a producer. And Mr. Producer has been making sure that every Monday at 5 a.m., that episode is live. And I'm so happy with the
Round of
consistency.
applause for Mr. Producer. Great job. But
Mr. Producer, you're keeping the show going.
it is finding out, going, what's more important to me, right? Is it, do I need to keep as much money from those sponsorships as possible, or do I need to be more consistent in what I'm actually trying to do here, and knowing that it is a balance at every time, and going, if it's more important for me to be consistent in this, if it's more important that I have a highly produced quality that I know is beyond my skill, then it is worth investing in that way. And everybody's got to make those decisions for themselves, whether they have it or whether they don't. I think it is just about going, just start somewhere, right? Just start, and you'll find your voice. You'll find your way through that. And Megan and I, we do continue to, we've designed our own website. Is it perfect? No. Could I have somebody do it and be 10 times better? Absolutely. But based off of how we work, I can wake up at 1:30 in the morning with an idea and go boop boop beep boop on my and make the changes when I need to, instead of waiting for somebody to do it. So the predictability is definitely I feel you. I feel you.
No, I'm happy that you are sharing this stuff because even though you built the website yourself, when I first started my business, I had built mine. The only reason why I hired it out is because during spring rush, I was really tired and I was trying to make those little edits that you were talking about. I deleted 4 out of the 5 pages of my website. I just deleted it. It was gone. It was gone. I was like, I don't know. I gotta figure this out. And it was devastating and I started crying and but those are learning moments, right? So what Erica's not gonna do is do any editing when she's tired, because that's not a good idea.
Yeah, no, it's finding those limits, and I did want to touch on too that you had mentioned the whole, wow, people have found my content and now look at their businesses and where they are, and that is real. Like, there are people who are listening to our show who didn't even start when we're listening on episode 1. Like, they came at episode like 100 or 200, and they did, like, they sunk their teeth into and just rocketed. And now we get to see where they are, and it's so wonderful to go, like, man, you really took this stuff and, like, great. You did something with this. And I love that, because I go, oh man, maybe if we didn't, could we have, I don't know, but also this is fun and I enjoy this, and I just want to see people win, right? I just want to see people doing and killing it, and doing awesome. And at the end of the day, that's so much fun. That's so much fun to see. So,
It is, and you're serving a really good purpose, and so that's what I keep telling myself, or I have told myself, like, I have a purpose, and it's the communication. I've been able to communicate and connect with people, and that's a skill set that a lot of people don't have, so I might as well keep going, and with the business, like, it doesn't matter if I were to grow my business to $1,000,000. Because of who I am as a person, I would still be comparing myself to somebody else and think that I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing good enough. And I just have to remember that about myself, that it's never going to be enough for me. So I just need to take comfort and kind of put the blinders on and not worry about other people and be like, listen, this is where God is leading you, Erica. You don't understand it all the time. You don't really. But then when somebody's like, hey, I started this business. I grew it to 6 figures. I quit my corporate job and now I was able to buy a house. What? Like, this is crazy. And then I just wanna cry, and it's really good stuff. So and I know you're doing the same. You've impacted a lot of people. I really, really enjoy your podcast. So thank you for everything that you and your wife are doing.
I really appreciate that, Erica. It means a lot. We have a lot of fun doing it, and we're just happy to help and do what we can.
Well, thank you. So if our listeners, they wanna find you, I'll go ahead and I'll include all of your links down below. Is there anything that you want to say before we go ahead and wrap up?
Nope, this has been a lot of fun. I've really appreciated the time getting to sit down and talk with you about this stuff, Erica. It's been my immense pleasure. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I appreciate you. I took some mental notes. I think I'm going to do a flashback Friday. So, Mr. Producer, if you're listening, I think we're going to add another podcast.
Do it. Do
Let's
it.
do
Do
it.
it.
All right, you guys. I try to drop a new episode every single Monday. Mr. Producer makes that happen. And until next time, bye.